There it is.
There we go. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Sip and Blow. Today. I am General Mills, and I am here with someone who might relate to one of those pieces. Yeah, Jeremy. Thank you for coming.
Yeah.
So first of all, let us know what you do.
Right now, I'm a reserve recruiter for the Air Force. So I put people into the Air Force Reserve, the whole 1 week in a month, 2 weeks a year sort of thing. But yeah, that's what I do now.
Okay. So I'm assuming were you enlisted before in another branch or?
Yeah, I'm still enlisted. No, I was active duty for 14 years and then got out for almost 2 years, then joined the reserve, did the regular reserve for a year and a half, volunteered for this recruiting duty so I could be on active status so I can retire on active duty.
Right.
About a little over 2 years from now.
Wow. So you're like at the home stretch, which is awesome.
Yeah.
But the initial career, you said 14 years, and say, what was the branch again? I'm sorry.
Air Force.
Air Force. Ooh, okay. So what made you choose the Air Force?
Well, one of my friends in high school, after high school, joined. I think he was 20 when he joined, 20 or 21, something like that. He looked 30, but he was like 21, whatever. And then my best friend, and this is after high school because I was 20, when he decided to join. So I'm like, working at this cheese factory, my hours got cut. Yeah, cheese factory. I grew up in Wisconsin, go figure.
Actual cheese factory. I thought you meant the Cheesecake Factory. I didn't hear. I
yeah, an actual cheese factory. He made processed American cheese. Yeah, my hours got cut because I guess people eat less cheese in the winter, and they eat more of it in the summer, whatever. So, like, I need something that's a little more stable, and I decided to join. I had a couple jobs before that after high school,
right?
But yeah, construction was not for me. I did work in an oil change for a year. Wow. I liked it, but the pay sucked. The cheese factory paid good during the summer.
Right.
But then, yeah, I decided to join the Air Force mostly because of friends and for a stable paycheck.
Wow. So I'm assuming college wasn't your thing either.
No, I still haven't gone.
Yeah, no.
I mean, there's the automatic enrollment in the community college of the Air Force. Everybody who enlists in the Air Force is automatically enrolled, but I still haven't finished that associate's degree either.
Yeah, college is not for everybody. I understand that now. It took me a while too, but I digress. So, okay, so you basically went because it's like, ooh, my friends are going and a paycheck. That's honestly at that age, yeah, why the fuck not?
Yeah.
So,
and there was no war on in 2000.
Right. So, I mean, okay, so let me know what your expectations were going in versus what you really got.
So I enlisted into a career field. I picked my job at MEPS. Things have changed since then. Do you know what MEPS is?
No.
MEPS stands for Military Entrance Processing Station. Anybody who enlists, most of the officers go through that. They check your medical, moral, education, all that stuff there. Your recruiter does that beforehand, but MEPS is there to try and disqualify you, whatever. And then you sit down once you're qualified, then you'll sit down with the liaison for your specific branch. We'll either go over the jobs that you do qualify for and you list a bunch, or in my case, he threw me a sheet of jobs and said, pick one.
Nice.
And the one that got my eye was electronic warfare. So I was like, sounds cool. I'll do that.
Electronic warfare?
Yes.
Boy, hope they're not listening now.
No, they're not. Well, yes, they are. The NSA, that's a different story.
Always listening.
And we don't know that for sure, right?
Mm-hmm. Anyway. Okay, cool. So whole list of jobs, you found one that sounded really awesome. Then what?
Well, it didn't turn out to be what you draw like a mental image, like, and I grew up in the 90s, obviously. So you saw dumbass movies like Hackers or Sneakers, and you're thinking,
Sure.
or even The Matrix for that matter, thinking it's going to be like this cool shit. No, I mean, it did turn out to be cool, but it wasn't what you would expect. And I repaired the electronic warfare equipment, or I replaced parts on the aircraft. It wasn't like I actually did any of the electronic warfare stuff so much as just maintain the equipment.
Putting your hands to the plow. I mean, even still, I mean, I think that's pretty cool. I like work with my hands, so I find that to be kind of still fun. But day in and day out, I don't know.
No, it was a good job.
Yeah, I could imagine. But another question I did have is like, I know several. My dad was in the Navy. My mom my grandpa was in the Army. And my uncle was in the Air Force, and I knew somebody in the Marines. So I know the different branches can vary as far as training goes, and how tough and how rigorous and how mean the people could be. So how was training for you?
Basic training wasn't bad. I mean, I got there. I actually, probably because of like airline food, I gained a couple pounds. So I was already at the line, and then I get there, and I was 2 pounds over my max weight. So my instructor leaned in, and he's like, "Your ass is gonna eat nothing but fucking salad. You hear me?" So like breakfast was the only meal where I got to eat any real food, and then lunch and dinner was salad. And I made garbage salads, but I was like the only person eating at the salad bar. And obviously, I'm still fat. I mean, look at me.
Please.
But hey, I'm 41. I can get away with it now, right?
Nice. Well, I'm not gonna let you get off that easy, but for now, fine. No excuses, soldier. So okay. So let's get into some good stuff. Let me ask you this: did you like it? For the 14 years?
Yeah, I stayed for 14 years for a reason.
Right.
So like most of the first 10 years, I was an aircraft maintainer, and I'd deployed 8 times. I'd go again tomorrow if they asked, which they're not gonna, but I would. But yeah, getting married was the reason I stopped doing that. My ex-wife was the one that wanted me to not deploy so much.
Right.
Because my second to last deployment was a little weird. I get a call in the way to work. They're like, "Hey, I need you to come in right away," and then go straight to the conference room. I'm like, "Great, squadron piss test." And then I get into the conference room, and it wasn't a piss test. It was like, okay. I mean, the squadron then was deployed to 2 different locations. And I look around the room, and it was the best maintainers that were still at home station in the room.
Oh shit.
I'm like, well, we're not going to pee in a cup. And then, then the production superintendent, she came in. She said, "Hey, I can't talk about what we're going to do here soon, so we have to go to a secure conference room." Come to find out later, we were going to get deployed to a South American country, and we couldn't tell anybody. We didn't know when we were leaving. We didn't know how long we were going to be gone, and we couldn't talk about why we were gone. We couldn't get any local currency, nothing.
Wow.
So I was married for like all of a month, and I come home and tell my then wife, "Hey, I gotta go somewhere. I can't tell you where, when, why, how, or for how long." And she said, "I thought this only happened in movies." I'm like,
right.
I've been on six other deployments, and none of them have come at us like this. They usually tell us that we're good to talk about it, just maybe not specific location, just right. Hey, we're going to the sandbox or whatever. But yeah, and then I sat at home waiting for them to call me in. And then when they called me in, which is like 2 days later, got on the plane, went to Waco, Texas for a couple of days to get some modifications of the plane. Mm-hmm. And then from there took off toward the South American continent.
Wow. And how long were you there for?
29 days.
Okay. So long time, but not like years. Okay.
No, yeah. Well, Air Force deployments never go past 6 months anyway. generally speaking.
Okay.
Sometimes airmen will get like a 1 year deployment or whatever, but then they get their choice of follow-on station. And I say they get their choice, but
They own you.
most of the time, you're only gone for 6 months or less.
Okay.
Some of that is just like giving out awards and stuff. Like if you deploy longer than 6 months, then they have to give you a short tour medal. I don't know why that's a big deal, but apparently it is.
Okay, cool. So I'm not going to ask about that mission because I know it's confidential, and honestly, I don't think I want to know. But okay, so you enjoyed your 14 years, and then how did you transition from there to what you're doing now, right?
So I got out and I got a job with a company called Abara Technologies Incorporated. So I went and worked at Intel's largest factory in Hillsboro, Oregon for a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
And then during that time, I was on night shifts, so I had 12-hour shifts, and I only had to be within 30 minutes of the factory. Or like if the engineer for the tools that I worked on called me,
Yeah.
and then 3 times a night I had to walk through the clean room to make sure stuff was good. So I got like a gym membership at a 24-hour gym. I'd spend like 2 hours a night there. And then it's almost 4 miles to run around the factory because it covers a big area.
Right.
So I got in like the best shape of my life at 35, 36 years old. And during that time, my ex-wife's like, maybe you should have joined the reserve when you got off back to duty. And I was like, bitch. Because I wanted to do that when I was separating from active duty. That way I didn't throw away my retirement entirely, because the reserve retirement, you collect a 59 and a half. So, yeah,
Right.
that's what I wanted to do in the first place if I was going to get out at all. And then, yeah, so I kept working on my fitness.
Right? I'm sorry,
Huh?
you were married at this time?
I was out of the Airforce at this time.
Oh, I'm sorry, but you were still married at this time, or did
Oh,
you
yeah. I got divorced shortly after I started reserve recruiting.
Okay. So that's how you ended up where you are now. Now, how do you like what you're doing? Because I know that my last option was to join the Air Force if I didn't end up getting my dream job, which I did. So when I lived in Houston, I did go to a recruiting office and I talked to the recruiter. I don't know if it's exactly what you do, which you'll explain to us shortly, but it's very chill, and it's like they're really trying to suck you in, and it's this, that, and the other. It's all good, but I'm a little bit more privy just because family stuff. So that ends up not being the option aside from the requirements, because I myself am technically overweight, and back then I was heavier. So first I had to lose like 40 pounds, and I had all the tattoos, but they were like, you could probably cover them up with the crew neck they give you, so that probably won't be an issue. But they were just like, it was already too much. I'm like, I don't know about this. So
you could have joined the Army. You still would have had to lose the weight, but you could have joined the Army.
Oh, no, thank you. But from the recruiter perspective, or from what you do, first of all, can you explain quick, like, what you do?
Yeah, so it's kind of like what you're talking about. I mean, I don't try to sell anybody too hard. When I was an active duty recruiter, I think I went a little hard. I mean, and my bag then was to talk to high school students, because one of the things I learned during my first year as an active duty recruiter was 2-3 years out of high school, you probably got law violations. You may have dabbled in some of the drugs, probably got tattoos, might be pregnant, might have got someone pregnant, all that sort of stuff. And then there was like the age cutoff was lower when I was an active duty recruiter. It was 28 as opposed to 39 now. But yeah, it was just one of those things like, hey, I need to work on these high school kids, get them in, especially the ones that have no ambitions towards college.
Right.
Like myself, be like, yeah, just give this a shot. I mean, it's only 4 years, and then you still get all this money for college if you decide that's something you do want to do later. Now as a reserve recruiter, it's a little different. My target demographic's a little older. People who previously served, regardless of branch, try to get them in. And now that I'm here in Altus, Oklahoma, don't ever move here, by the way. It's awful.
I would not go anywhere near Oklahoma in general.
Yeah. No. The best part about Oklahoma is that I don't have to worry about somebody trying to come for this.
Right.
So
right. This is mine. Pew,
I actually fired it earlier today, so I got it out because I got to clean it after we're done here. But now that I work at Altus Air Force Base, and my job is to train people who want to get out of the Air Force. At least talk to them about serving part time, because you can only you can just try it on for a year, and if you don't like it, you can be done.
Right.
But my biggest market here on base is pilots getting out, because their active duty service commitment is either close to its end or ending. And they still, they've already done 10, 11, 12 years. They want to finish it up and get at least a reserve retirement while they fly, as a civilian pilot for whoever.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
I'm sorry.
So I got a lot of majors that I put into the Air Force Reserve right from here.
Okay. And I'm sure that these people are seeking you out, but is there also a database of some sort that you go off of to seek them out as well?
Yeah. So the personnel section, which is literally in the same building that I work in, they send me a list every month of like people 6 months out from their separation. Mm-hmm. They also give me an alphabetical roster of everybody who's stationed here, which is what I usually work off of. I just look and see when their date of separation is, and then I send them an email 9 months out from their date of separation so that I can at least have like that first contact with them. Like, hey, you do have to talk to me before you get out.
Right.
That's it.
Right. And do you have like a quota you have to meet?
Yes.
Holy are you serious? That was a good question, but fucking for real?
Yeah, so I have to get at least 26% of the separatees that leave the base, which is actually kind of a low number. But then since I also have the line recruiting goal, I also have to bring in 28 people total into the Air Force Reserve between what I get from Altus and then off the street.
What happens if you don't make your quota?
They say not so nice things about me.
Oh, that's it? You're not like banned?
No, they give us paperwork and it's supposed to make us feel bad, but I'm at that point in my career where I don't give a shit, which is actually made me an effective recruiter, at least on base, because I tell my applicant or people that come to my office, I don't really give a flying fuck if I make my goal. What matters is that I do the right thing for you.
Right.
If you don't want to do the Air Force Reserve, it doesn't hurt me any. I don't care. If you don't think it works for you. But I don't sell the opportunity to people that I don't think it's going to work for. So like air traffic controllers, for one, they're going to get out and make 6-figure incomes. They don't need me. So they come to me like, hey, I want to join the Air Force Reserve. Like, first off, we're going to have to retrain. You want to do that? Because we don't have a whole lot of air traffic control positions in the reserve anyway. And then two, do you think you can afford giving up 1 week in a month and 2 weeks of the year to do this and then lose out on some of that pay with the FAA?
Right.
And if they're okay with that, then I would, but I haven't met one that is. So,
Smart.
And then there's other bases, like there's an in-service recruiter at Nellis, which is outside of Vegas. They have a large cyber division there, or cyber unit there. And all those guys, again, they're going to make over $100,000 in their first year if they get out. So why in the hell would you do this? And then not only that, but then the Air National Guard, which is just like the reserve, but they also have like the state mission. And if you want to take time to look it up, what's the difference between the Guard and the reserve, go for it. They have a cyber unit right there also. And a lot of those airmen are also full time. So they don't have to worry about getting sent to another base. They can stay there in Vegas for as long as they want.
Nice. Okay, so I'm still shocked about the quota thing because it reminds me of like street cops or whatever who have to make quota for tickets, and it's just like then you start pulling over for bullshit. But at least yours is less detrimental, so to speak.
Well, it's mostly based in the reserve. It was mostly based on trying to get to the end strength because the reserve does have so many people it's supposed to have come the end of the fiscal year, which is September 30th. And this year, for the first time in over 5 years, the Air Force Reserve looks like it's on track to make end strength. Right. But the assignment of the goal isn't as scientific as it is on active duty. Like active duty's got formulas based on the amount of people in your market, how many graduating high school seniors you got, what's been the trend in the past for people that come out. and then they assign you a goal every month. In the reserve, they just go, here's your number.
Wow.
At the beginning of the fiscal year. So October 1st, I'll get a new number. And I'm be like, how did you get to this number? And they're like, well, and then they give me a bunch of bullshit. And I'm like, that's a pretty big number for this area.
Right.
You sure that's the number? And they did the same thing when I was in Connecticut too. Like my number was really fucking high. Like higher than the previous 10 years of recruiting, because like in the system that we have to track applicants and, you know, submit their applications and everything, you can look at previous years for the last 15 years or so. And I looked when I was in Connecticut, the previous 10 years, so they saw me go like 35 for the year. No one in the previous 10 years had ever put in 35.
Just 35 people in the year?
Yeah.
And to me,
well, this is a reserve. This is an active duty.
Right.
But like when I was an active duty recruiter, even in Little Astoria, Oregon, I still got 1-2 people a month, and it wasn't too terribly difficult. And then then I would cover Portland sometimes, Portland, Oregon. All I had to do was open the door and people were walking in.
Really?
So yeah, that guy would get a 4 every month, sometimes 5 for a goal for active duty recruiting. So, but he could make it because he just had the one day somebody was pounding on the door and I hadn't even, the hours are on the door. And he saw that I was in there. He's like pounding on the door. Hey, can you let me in? And I'm like, dude, the hours are 9 to 5 and it's like 8:30. But the people wanted in that bad up to Portland, Oregon to the Airforce.
That's insane. Okay. Wow. Okay. So, I mean, we've talked about some of the benefits, not very many, but I want to get to if you like what you're doing now, and if so, why, and if not, why?
No, I hate recruiting with a passion. I think I kind of highlighted some of it, but there's like ancillary stuff that people will never see. I do have intentions of writing a book about this because it's not just the Air Force. I mean, you talk to Army, Navy, Marines, not so much Coast Guard. But there's always like this stuff where you're like, dude, that shit ain't okay. You know what I mean? And I don't want to like lay it all out, but there's like people are willing to bend or even break rules to get people in. I'm not one of those people, by the way. First off, it always never sat well with me.
Right.
And then 2, I'm like that guy that gets caught, so I'm not doing it.
I'm that person too all my life because I always do get caught, to be honest. So I just don't do. Yeah. So I get it. And of course, I told you before this, you don't have to get into anything you don't want to get into. But what's probably the worst? What's probably the thing you dislike the most about what you do, like out of everything?
There's like some people that I've met that are willing to say certain things, and it's not necessarily the whole story. And that's the one thing that I like when I was an active duty recruiter. Sometimes I'd say it, you know, show them the rainbows, but don't show them the unicorn shit on the other end. But now as a reserve recruiter, I just tell you what it is.
Right.
But that's the thing, because I'll hear other recruiters talk to an applicant. I'm like, dude, you know that shit ain't fucking entirely true. Why would you say that? And he goes, I don't need to know all that. I was like, be fucking nice if I did. So, I mean, it wouldn't have stopped me, but it might for somebody else. Because there's a lot of people that get in the Air Force or any branch of the military and go, hey, my recruiter showed me this thing. But they completely neglected this other thing about being in whatever branch of service you chose.
Right.
You hear the story over and over again, especially now that I see people on their way out. Like, yeah, it would have been nice if you would have been my recruiter when I was coming in, because at least then I would have came in a little more eyes wide open.
Right.
There's that. Then there's the immense amount of paperwork to put in any single person into whatever branch. You know, the reserve recruiter, we do it all. And some of it's like, it's excessive. Like, can you guys boil this down to a couple of forms instead of 12? That'd be great. And there were qualifications. Yeah, there's not always like a firm line as to who can and who can't.
Okay.
I wish it was kind of written like yes, no.
Right. Black or white. Right.
There's like a whole lot of maybe if they did this and that.
So I'm guessing that's where people start to bend and break those rules a bit. One of the areas.
Yeah, or maybe just neglect to mention certain things or whatever. It just
Interesting. So knowing what you do now and almost being done, for anybody who feels like the military is their viable option, would you suggest it? Would you like be a proponent? Like, would you suggest it?
The one thing I would always say to anybody who's considering college or military, given the state of the college loan program and the expense of going to university or college, or even community college first, and then on to get your bachelor's degree, is that it's almost entirely worth it to join every time. If you are not a conscientious objector and you meet the qualifications, go for it. Because the worst that happens is that you do your time and you leave. And then you still got that money there in your pocket that you can use.
Right. Oh gosh, I wasn't expecting that answer actually, but okay, it makes sense. Kind of
because people like have these weird or like have these worries about being in the military. As an airman, even though I went to Afghanistan, Kuwait, Qatar, Uzbekistan, that other place, the closest I ever got to being shot was when I was having a day trip down in Mexico. So, and somebody's popping off rounds outside of some Pedro Hornies type club at one of those border town bars in I can't remember the name. It's south of Tucson, wherever.
Arizona.
But that's the closest I ever came to being shot at. I mean, there was a rocket attack when I was in Afghanistan. I slept through it. It sailed overhead, hit nothing. I mean, it just landed in dirt. And then there was a second rocket attack, but it was at the gate, and that was 6 miles away from where I work. It's the same story in any other branch. I mean, soldiers, most of them are not what you see in Band of Brothers or any of the other movies. Because if you make a movie about what I did, it's going to be a comedy, and it might be kind of boring. You make a movie about a soldier in a transportation company, it's probably going to be a comedy. The rest of life is pretty boring.
Right.
Navy, I mean, life on a boat's probably just going to be gross. So when I was in Connecticut, the Navy recruiter that worked next door to me, he got sent down to the naval base in New London after he was done with his recruiting tour. And I got to walk through the submarine that he worked on, the USS Providence. I'm glad I joined the Air Force. That's all I got to say about that. It's a Los Angeles class attack sub. It smells like body odor. It's cramped. There's just way too and it was in dock, so there wasn't that many people in there, but it still felt claustrophobic. So
I don't know. My dad never had any complaints. In fact, all of his stories were really funny and fun. But then again, my dad, he's a different breed anyways. But the reason why I picked the Air Force was because it was like low risk in the sense where my friend who was in the Marines, he went to Afghanistan a few times and he was blown up, so to speak, a couple times. And so he's not right in the head. And he has, the cliche PTSD stuff that they go through, bless their hearts. So
sure. There was a Marine recruiter that worked in the same strip as me in Connecticut. And same thing, he was a 50 gunner. He was in Iraq. He had PTSD. He gets like 80% disability from the VA now. But I guess he has his moments. I never saw them, but he broke his wrist on somebody's face.
Ooh.
So
yep.
Yeah, it was.
They're a different breed, and the person I'm talking about,
Well, they are to start with. So as a recruiter, the one thing I noticed Was that if somebody said they were going to the Marines, I'm not changing their mind.
Yeah, no, they have a different personality, they're just a different type of breed. And I was going to say, the guy I knew from high school, he was always a different kind of breed. And so when he said he was joining the Marines, I wasn't shocked. However, again, when he came out, he became a very more dramatic, he became more dramatic than himself. It was him, but it was just to another level. And that shit is just, it's wild to see somebody change so drastically. But I have, we're at 30 minutes, so I do have one more question, and then just tell me whatever you want to tell me if we left anything out. But one thing I do hear a lot, and a lot of people do, is females in the service. Have you known or seen or heard anybody be harassed in your branch in your earlier career?
Yeah. But I've seen the story from both ends as well. I had also met an individual who was accused but not guilty.
Ugh.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because him and his wife were both in my office together because they were both due to get out. Well, he was getting kicked out because he got demoted, and she was choosing to get out.
Right.
And they didn't go into details, but even, I guess, and the implication was they had an open marriage, and that this girl was invited in or something. But then I guess probably regretted it and then turned him in. Now she basically ruined two lives because the wife now was like on antidepressants and had anxiety and everything else. So, and then was kind of ostracized in her unit because him and her both, because they were both in trouble. Well, he was, and then she was married to him. So,
right.
But I'd seen it the other way around as well, where guys were inappropriate towards females.
Right.
It happens. I mean, it happens in real life. Keep in mind that the military is nothing more than a small cross section of America as a whole. And reporting is probably higher in the military than it is on the outside.
See, that's where maybe it's because of your branch. I don't know, but I've heard some horror stories about, the whatever branch not doing all that they could for the female, because to me, it's just a boys' club, to be honest. So obviously the females are going to get the rougher end of the stick some of the time. But
that's some of the things that I had heard from the Corps in particular. Because like, if you're a female in the Corps, it's not always a good ride. Mm-hmm. The Air Force we're a lot more professional, I guess. I had heard that from soldiers that had been with and around airmen during their time in the Army. Like, yeah, you guys are on it. You guys know your stuff. More professional.
Not degenerate.
The training's better.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and I mean, and it's just me personally. I never wanted to be like a sexual harasser in the unit or anywhere that I work. So.
That is a great thing to not be.
Well, and some of it's just kind of because of like uncles and whatever. One of my uncles was like highly inappropriate.
Everybody has that uncle.
Well, he was racist. We'll just put it there. But he also was very sexist. So sometimes he'd say stuff. I'm like, not funny. Yeah. Even as a kid, you're like, what the fuck is wrong with this guy? So
right.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, family. Oh my God, this has been pretty interesting. I'm again glad I did not get a chance to enlist, because I don't think I think I do well, but honestly, I don't think I would enjoy it. So, is there anything else you would like to tell anybody watching? Cautions or advice or anything of that nature?
I don't know. Yeah, just at least sit down and talk to a recruiter. Don't blow us off. I mean, again, if you're against war, don't talk to a recruiter. But if you feel like indifferent about it, then go for it. But yeah, like people die all the time. I mean, so for me personally, I'm like, humans have been killing each other since we were humans, and So we're going to continue to do it. It might as well be me as opposed to somebody who's, doesn't want to at all. Because that's the best thing about the military today is that there is no draft or conscription.
Right.
We're all volunteer. We all walk into this fairly eyes wide open.
Depending on the recruiter.
Well, no, what we're here to do.
Right.
Don't you? Yeah. And it's not like, hey, your number came up, you're joining whether you wanted to or not. It's just, yeah, you know what we do. You chose to be here.
Right.
Of course, I never had to actually do it, so I just fix airplanes.
I can't believe I actually brought you on and you're promoting the military. I just want to grr, pew 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 pew.
Why?
I don't know. I always unpromote the military, but that's just me. Even though I love military people, obviously, but I don't know. I'm a big proponent on education. If that's one's even remotely close thought, I just feel like working for the government in that capacity is I don't know. I can't. I won't even get into that. I can't explain it anyways. But
You can't explain it?
I cannot. It's just
Why not?
I don't because maybe not the Air Force, but I feel like certain branches. I mean, just pawns. You know what I'm saying? Like numbers. Like you were saying, you have a database you have with a potential names, and it's just like they're numbers. People are numbers in the military, and people are numbers everywhere and somewhere.
They are to me, but I understand where you're coming from because I'm not. I've met other recruiters, and the next person is a number to them.
Mm-hmm.
For me, you're an individual. Hey, is this going to work for you? Then if not, but yeah, there's people out there. We're not all here just to get our number. Some of us just want to help people continue to serve in a capacity that suits them best.
Well, I surely hope there are more of you than there are of the other, but something is telling me that
I hope so too, but I'm not. I'm pretty cynical.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jeremy. Again, I appreciate your time and your willingness to talk about the things we talked about. And I hope you enjoy talking about it.
Well, got to get it out there somehow, right?
I suppose you do.
Yeah.
I hope the next 2 years go by fast for you too, because that is then party time.
Yes. Well, my ex-wife gets half of that, but whatever.
That's a whole other sip and blow.
Yeah. We could have an entirely another phone call about that in general.
Part
Anyway.
2, marriages after the military. Oh my gosh. But yes, no, again, thank you. And I will be talking to you soon, probably on Twitter.
Okay. Probably.
Probably.
All right.
Thanks, Jeremy. Take care.
Yep. Bye.
Bye. And that has been an episode of Sip and Blow.